And here we are again. Thank you for joining us for the Speak Pact podcast. I am Antoniette Rose, your host. And today I am bringing a Brazilian singer to you. She is also a resilience expert. She is a TEDx speaker, an award winning author. She just comes packed with so much goodness. And she's really an expert in becoming visible and stop being the best kept secret, right? Get yourself out there in all the right places. And that's what we're going to dive in today. Welcome, Marta Spurk.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on to the show. I've been noticing you and I see you really kind of everywhere. Bring us on the journey. Number one, how did you go from Brazilian speaker to a TEDx stage? Well, what was the journey there? And then what made you that visibility expert?
Oh my goodness, where to start? Well, from a young age, I'd always been very drawn to the American culture, to the English language. I have my dad to thank for that because he was always playing music in English, whether it be from the UK or from America. So it was always around me. And back in the day when we didn't have the internet to search for lyrics, I used to fast forward cassette tapes and CDs and stop and try to write down the lyrics. And a lot of my knowledge of English really started there, but then it evolved with me becoming a translator and interpreter. And I came to move to the United States after marrying my American husband. We met at a church conference in Oklahoma, and he was living in Colorado at the time when we got married. And that's where I landed. I continued on with my career of languages. I'm a certified court interpreter. I got a master's degree in linguistics here at CU Denver. But then, huge plot twist, as if moving and uprooting my entire life from Brazil to America wasn't enough, which was very voluntary. I wanted that as hard as it was because immigrating is never easy and leaving everything you'd known for me for 23 years
Yeah.
was, a culture shock, not extreme because I was used to the American culture. I had been coming and visiting, especially for church conferences for a while. But in 2016, I gave birth to triplets.
Woo! Oh my
So
goodness. All by
that was
yourself? Was there any help there as far as the or it just happened?
so we were living in Brazil at the time. So after I finished my master's, we moved to Brazil. My parents were like, You've been gone for so long and you're living too far. Why don't you try living down here?" And that's when I started trying to have, a family. And little did I know that I would go from 0 to 3 in
Just get it all
one.
done at once. Well, you're tiny. I'm sure that was a
That
heck
was
of a job for you.
terrifying. There was a whole podcast episode on just that piece
That's your
right
podcast.
there. We'll fast forward. That's when I really started feeling the need to mentor.
Mhm.
Obviously, as a teacher, a languages teacher, I was fulfilling that role. And in being an interpreter, I feel like a very helpful person, but I don't necessarily have a voice because a great interpreter adds or subtracts nothing to what is being said. And I have lots to say. I am a speaker after all. Um, that's when I really began my coaching business. And it started, I started with network marketing. I started diving into personal development, books and trainings. And I realized there's a market there for me to share my life experiences and help people and encourage them. And that's where my coaching really began. And it's evolved with me looking for ways to get more visible and to spread this message of empowerment and encouragement. I started landing opportunities. I've done several TV segments. Um, I've gotten to speak for TEDx. I've been featured in magazines. And then other women entrepreneurs started asking, "How are you doing all of these things?" And I started sharing. This is how you can go about it. This is the best way to pitch, et cetera, et cetera. So it's evolved into helping women entrepreneurs with their visibility. And in this process, I realized that nothing is out of reach. I've really been living the American dream on so many levels because I started from scratch here. Growing up in Brazil, my dad is an entrepreneur. He built a great business and we were pretty well off, which was another source of contentment. Why are you leaving everything that I've built to go start from scratch in another country? Granted, it is a first world country. But anyways, I had lots of connections and opportunities in Brazil, and I pretty much said goodbye to all of it to start from scratch so that I could do what I wanted to do, even
So I would
though
assume that first things first, right? You had to get like, here I am.
Yeah.
I'm available. How did you go from a brand new country, not a name that was known
Yeah.
in, I'm assuming, in North America? What were some of the first steps that you took to say, "Hey, Marta Spurk is here and she's available to speak." And then that begins, right? The momentum begins and and people start reaching out, "Hey, I think we can really utilize you over here or for
Yeah.
this conference or for this corporate training," whatever it might be. What were those first steps from going from ground zero up?
Yes. So I leveraged social media because especially when my babies were really small and it was hard for me to get out of the house without them or, to have somebody, because that's the other thing when you were asking, did you do everything? Did you have help when they were first born? Yes, because I was living in Brazil, but then we moved back to America and my husband's family is not from Colorado.
Ah,
So both of us have done this on our own pretty much this entire 8 years that we
oh
have
my
had the
goodness, with
kids.
triplets. Wowza.
And it's been wild, but so I started with social media, doing whatever it was that I would hear would be helpful, and obviously, I hired mentors to help me with that as well, but joining different Facebook groups, friending people, sending messages saying, "Hey, can we connect?" Doing Zoom connects, and then eventually doing in-person networking. So I'm a part of several groups. I consider that as part of my business activities to attend groups consistently, to make myself known, to advertise my offers, to offer support, to advertise other people's offers and connect people that may be good partners, or collaborators. So that's something I continue to do, but that's how I got started is the more people I know, the more people will know me. And that's just
Okay, really,
it's
I
that.
love this. I love this because I think a lot of us join groups, but we just kind
Mhm.
of don't
Yeah.
work the group, right? I think if you go in there and you were really genuinely generous with information, with connecting people,
Mhm.
with giving, right? You're not in there posting,
Right.
spamming the group, or you're not kind of stalking the group, right? Just not
Right.
getting yourself out there. I kind of wondered if that still works. It's not something that I really do much anymore, except for groups I was already established in. I felt like maybe it was saturated, but from what I'm hearing from you, no, you can still really utilize. And I guess too, the more niched you are,
Mhm.
um, the mother of triplets, right? If you go to a mother of
Yeah.
triplets group, you're gonna have a lot to say, and people are gonna really resonate with you because you actually are experiencing the thing. So tell me a little bit about that. So you join you I think one for me, one biggie is choose your groups wisely and
Yeah.
don't be in so many groups that it really is impossible to start
Yeah.
building relationships in any.
Yeah.
So how did you hone them down? And on maybe a daily, weekly basis, how much time do you spend in those groups and what kinds of things do you do?
So I would say, first off, I believe in a combination of leveraging social media to really bridge the gap between the in-person meetings that you attend because you're not going to go to in-person meetings every day, and most groups meet once a month. What do you do all the other days of the month when you're not seeing that person and being able to stand up in front of the group and talk about your offers? You post on your social media, but you have that connection with that person individually, but also if you're part of a group. And I'll also say something that is very important is joining paid networking groups because the level of entrepreneurs that are in those groups is very different than the ones that are just kind of trying to see if they can find somebody to barter with, and there's nothing wrong with that. When you're getting started, you do things that you need to do to get your name out there and to get practice, honestly, and experience. But when there is skin in the game, people behave differently, not all of them. But there is an expectation of if you're paying a yearly fee or a monthly fee to be here, then you're paying attention to what other people are doing and you are wanting to connect with other people because then that benefits you and your business. So that is something that I learned early on is yes, I can be a part of free groups and I can give value, right? When somebody asks for advice and that can make me stand out, lead to a DM, individual conversation that could potentially lead to a sales conversation. But many people in the free groups are just looking for free advice and you can't build a business like that. So I would say join paid groups. And then in terms of my routine, I would say I have my content strategy that I create and I put out regardless of what's going on is Monday through Friday I'm creating something. Obviously there's exceptions, but I treat it like working days. I'm out here and I'm sharing something of value and I'm offering an opportunity for you to work with me. And then I attend meetings. Some groups meet the first week of the month, the second week of the month. I'm a part of several groups, and that's built into my schedule. Also, thinking, what am I going to promote when I go to that meeting? Because I'm usually promoting something, because there's usually an opportunity in these in person meetings for you to stand up and talk about an upcoming event or an offer. And then what happens is that person walks away from that meeting and they see your post because you're connected on social media and maybe they're in your email list and they receive your email. So that's visibility
Layering,
for me.
right?
It's
It's
hitting
layering is
all
so
sides.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Can we rewind though for
Mhm.
a second? Because I really love what you said
Yes,
about it's not all apples are the same, right? There's there's Honeycrisp
true.
and there's, I don't know, the pie making apple, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that's the
Mhm.
very same with groups, right? You do get what you pay for. So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to invest your valuable resources, yes, money, but also your time, your IP, your energy, then choose wisely. We can be sure, sure we can maybe attract a client or two or a good relationship or two in these free spaces.
Mhm.
But what's that ROE? What's the best return on your energy and your
Yes.
efforts? And for each one of us as a speaker, it's going to be really different. Yes, IASB, yes, NSA, like those are all really obvious ones.
Yeah.
But also, if you happen to be, if you're, um, let's say your expertise is in team building in
Mhm.
corporations, right? There are some really great associations or groups that you can get with that maybe, and I would think along the lines of HR groups or
Mhm.
SKO groups, like sales kickoff group, if there are
Yeah.
that kind of groups. That's not my area, but very targeted. So number one, you're there with serious people who are
Mhm.
who understand what it means
Yes.
to invest in yourself and your career. And number two, if you want those higher paid engagements, speaking engagements, those are the places you're going to meet the people that will value what you bring to the table and will be willing to pay for it, whether it's for that 10, 15, $20,000 speaking engagement or a consulting package that you might have, some other high ticket item. If you're out there selling a $27, $179, even a $2,000 thing, you can kind of collect a lot of good data in some of the free spaces. But I think if you just want to kind of cut a check for speed and get serious fast, that point you made about the quality of groups that you enter into was so important. And I think it's glossed over a lot of
Yes.
times. We're just like, oh, yeah, this is a group that are my people. They might be
Mhm.
your people, but are they people who are serious
Yeah.
about investing in themselves to get to the next level or investing in their organization
Yeah.
to help their organization? As a speaker, you want the answer.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're really just having fun in a group, and it's not really going to maybe give you that return that you and you're like, this isn't working. Then it's just not working. Right. So it sounds like you really understood the difference going in.
Yeah.
And now you're a sought after speaker. You're an award winning author. I didn't even say all the things. I know you have the Empowered Women podcast, which is uh, has a really strong um, no, that's your book name. You're the Empowered
Both.
Woman podcast. Okay, yeah, and the book.
Mhm.
And then tell me a little bit about the Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success. Is that a book or
That's
is
the book.
that the group?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it right there. I actually have 2. So my first book is The Empowered Woman: The Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success. I was released almost 3 years ago, which is crazy to think. And it really is the foundation. Talk a little bit more about my story, immigrating from Brazil, having triplets, and then I share specific steps for women to build that foundation to grow their business. And it's all pretty much personal development and mindset based. I didn't get into any of the marketing and visibility strategies that I now teach, which that's coming up in another book eventually. But it really is that mindset piece of self belief and self awareness and really surrounding yourself with people that can help you in this journey of life, but also of entrepreneurship that can be so lonely and so confusing as well. So I talk about, self forgiveness and forgiving others and really taking a good look at yourself. Because I always say there are three things in life that will show you what you're made of and hold up a big old mirror in front of you: marriage, motherhood, parenthood, and owning a business.
I had no problems. I was totally solid before I got married. It's like, who is this woman? I don't even know who she is. But yeah, it's really easy to hide your weaknesses when you don't kind of get challenged outside of
Oh, yeah,
your
exactly.
comfortable little space. I love the way you said I love the way you correlated self-belief, self-awareness, self-confidence with visibility because I think that we don't even realize we're doing it, right? When we're confident, we know we've got something to offer. We know there are people out there laying awake at night praying for
Yes.
our solutions. We're going to get ourselves seen. Like
Mhm.
we're going to do it. Not even consciously sometimes, right? We're going to be in the right places with the right people as much as possible. But when we have some self-doubt that we're not allowing ourselves to be aware of, not really facing. We have um, some maybe limiting beliefs that we haven't tapped into,
Yeah.
then you're going to find reasons why not to be in those places. Maybe why not to show up on social media and put those extra posts out there that day, or why not to go to that networking meeting, or why not to pick up that 2,000-pound phone to say, "Hey, I see that you have a call for speaker going on," right?
Mhm.
You know, so I think that you're really kind of hitting it at the zone where people don't realize why they're stuck and not really moving to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. What precedes the action and why you're not taking the action. Because sometimes that's what I've noticed with clients all the time. I've given you the plan. I'm here to help you. And implementation doesn't exist. So it's not, sometimes people don't have a plan and that's why they're not taking action. But more often than not, people that are ready to take action, they'll just do something and that moves the needle, even if it's not strategic, right? It'll get you somewhere because you're literally moving. But oftentimes it's because of that inner chatter that is really holding them back. And that's what I talk about in the book a lot is what is that inner chatter? Because it is similar for most of us, but there is a little bit of a nuance and a lot of it has to do with our childhood wounds and
Yeah.
things we were told as children. So I talk a lot about that as well.
Well, it's again, really important concept that you're bringing to the table. And I think we all know it in our heads, but we don't see it
Right.
when we're doing it. So we all pay big dollars for the plan, right? We buy
Right.
this program, we buy that program, we get this mentor and that mentor, and we've got our plan, we've got our signature
Mhm.
talk, we have what to do, and then we're like, well, it didn't work because even in some of these programs that we purchase,
Mhm.
there's not that implementation support, and it really
Yeah.
ties into that self-awareness piece because I think that if somebody's willing to link arms with you and take you those first several steps in the
Mhm.
so let's get the plan and then let's step onto the path and just start working the plan, right? I think that a lot of these programs stop short of that, and then it's up to you and you're like, yeah, I'm going to
Right.
do this.
And then it
The
doesn't happen.
refrigerator needs cleaning out. You
Mhm.
find every reason not to actually begin the implementation, and the further the space between the plan and the implementation, the less likely that implementation is going to happen. It does
Yeah.
take real work. Speaking is a real business. That
It
is
is.
arguably one of the most prosperous opportunities that there are out there, right? Why are the most high profile people go to writing a book or speaking? Because the opportunity is so incredible, even for those of us who might be superheroes in just our niche. Maybe we'll never become a household name. The opportunity is incredible, coupled with a lifestyle that is really unmatched. But just like pro athletes, right? Only the top 10% or whatever, maybe even the odds are way less than that of those who go after that actually achieve it. I think that happens with speakers, not because it's not there's a whole lot more opportunity in the speaking space than you
Mhm.
would possibly imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But those who are willing to look at it as a serious business and do that grind that it takes to get any business off the ground in the beginning, for some reason, there's this hallucination that,
Mhm.
hey, I am fabulous. I have got some really important information. I have all these accolades in all these other areas. You want me to speak, right? Well, there's a lot more to it
Mhm.
than that. And if you try to skip that chasm, I guess, sometimes you're just going to fall flat. You need the business side behind it. And so
Oh, yeah.
these tactical things that you've put in place as a visibility strategist is one really important part of that. You're not you're only going to get discovered by putting yourself out there. You're only going to get referred and talked about, um, and sought after. The more you're seen, the more you're seen and heard. You've got to get yourself out there. And in the beginning, that feels thankless in a lot of ways. Like it feels paidless and thankless. But once that popcorn starts popping, then all of a sudden, you're just like takes forever for those few kernels to pop. You're like, there must be something wrong. Let me shake the bag or whatever. And then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
like it all happens. That's really like a speaking career. Like it just seems
Mhm.
like it's just not happening. I'm trying all these things. It's not happening. But once they start popping, one encourages the other. And then you really get that momentum. Well, sadly, a lot of really important voices stop short of letting that happen. You think of somebody like Tony Robbins, if he would have given up in month 9, I'm sorry, year,
Mhm.
read about his journey in year 9. This just isn't working. And he's no slouch. Like he's out, was,
Yeah.
really, proactive. If he would have given up in year 9, there's a lot of lives that wouldn't have had the benefit of his message for those people who resonate with him. Same with you, your voice, in our beautiful Speak Pack listeners. Same with you. Anything good does not come easy. You've got to put yourself out there. And I love that you have those beginning steps that we like to just skip right over because we're so fabulous. Why do we
Mhm.
need that? Right. So you recognize that you paved away from yourself, you started getting yourself visible. What was the next step? How did you take it to the next level after that? And how did you land on being a highly recognized author, getting invited to a TEDx stage? How did all that happen?
Yeah, it really was consistency and continuation and taking the next step, really. I had applied for TEDx's early on. I think the first time I applied was in 2018, the first few times. And there's a whole story there that I did hear back, but they wanted me to audition in person. It was a town here in Colorado, 3 hours away, and my
Mm,
babies were just a couple months short of turning 2. So it was just not feasible at the time. Unfortunately, I had to turn it down. But then a few years later, the opportunity came about again, and that's a lot of what I teach my clients now is that I believe in being engaged and being involved. So that's the other thing that I learned is again making myself known by making myself useful. That's
mm,
huge in
mhm.
business. Is if you land a helping hand to somebody, they will remember that more than if you're just advertising your services. That's basic, human nature. And that's what I did. I volunteered for an event because many people that apply for TEDx's have never actually been to an event. They just watch stuff on YouTube. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to humble myself. So a lot to, what you were talking about. Yeah, you may have all these accolades and in a certain realm, in a certain world, you are known as this big shot. But if you're entering a different industry in a different place, you start from the bottom like everybody else. You may advance a little faster because of your other accomplishments in your other area, but if no one knows you, no one knows you until they know you. So it is really your job to make yourself known. And I think I really have this gift of, and I talk about this in my book as well, being the younger child and really coming out with the bang of I'm gonna be noticed. I dethroned my older sister, but I am a person. I have a space here, and I'm gonna be very vocal about it. And obviously, a lot of what I do has to do with my voice now, so I know it has to do with that. But now I'm helping people with that as well. But anyways, it was just seeking for opportunities and feeding that part of me that says, why not me? Because it's always that battle, right? Of I'm not good enough and then I'm awesome. And then finding that middle ground of why not me, knowing that I have to do the work. It's not going to be handed to me. And many times we are waiting for the big break. Who's the person I'm going to meet that's going to open the doors of heaven? And sometimes you will find somebody that will give you opportunities, but they are not going to do the work for you. So back to what we were talking about networking, it's really in all who you know. So the more people you know, the more chances you are of getting to that person, to that connection. And a huge story about this and that really made this clear to me is me getting to sing the national anthem for sporting events.
Ooh.
So that was a desire that I've always had. And I started out by doing a singing competition in the radio. So I didn't start just, somebody one day found me in the streets and said, can you go sing the national anthem? Because sometimes that's what we think, right? It's just going to land. It's not just going to land, you have to set the intention and take the steps. And so I set the intention of telling the world I want to do this. And I had the entire social media that, people inside social media voting for me so that I could win this thing. And from there, other opportunities starting coming about. And I did send emails and I did invite myself. And I never heard back until I realized my neighbor knows the person that books for the Nuggets here in Denver. And that's how I got my way in. So there's always somebody that you're waiting to meet that's going to facilitate, but it's probably not going to be in year 1. It may be in year 9 or 10, but you just got to keep going. And that's one of my Marta isms is people will notice you if you don't go away, and you can control going away. So you better stay at it.
People will notice you if you don't go away. Say that second part again.
Oh gosh, the other one was impromptu freestyle. And you can control going away or staying. So choose to stay.
Oh, good. Okay. So we quote you. And so this is a really
Okay,
good one.
good.
Producer put a mark in this one. Another one that you said that it was just really fabulous. I'm definitely going to quote you on this because it's so important. If no one knows, okay, if no one knows you, no one knows you until they know you.
Yes,
I don't even know if you said that, but it was a really good quote.
I
So it's
did.
yours.
I
So, and then why not me? So many times we're like, nobody wants me.
did. Hmm.
Much different work you're giving your brain and your body. You're telling your brain nobody wants me. So your brain and your body is going to make sure nobody wants you versus why not me?
Hmm.
I've got what it takes. Right? Why
Yep.
not me? How do I crack this nut, right? Whatever it is. How do I
Yep.
break through? When you ask yourself that kind of question, your body's like, "Ooh, let's get the answer. Let's figure
Mhm.
this out."
Totally.
And it'll work on your behalf. So words are so powerful, but that comes from the attitude of the this is going to work. We just got to figure it out, right?
Mhm.
I really really love that, and I love your spirit behind that. Consistency key. I
Mhm.
think that if you want to take a break, make sure that machine is still running. Like have the
Yes.
business processes in place. So if you
Mhm.
take November off to go on a fabulous trip to Brazil to see your
Mhm.
family, then that machine's still running so that 3 months
Mhm.
from now, you still have engagements.
Yes.
What we slow down right now, we're going to feel 3 months from now. So
Mm.
if you're not taking your business seriously, if you don't have an assistant and processes working for you in the background, um, you're you're going to feel it. Like
Oh, yeah.
there's going to be effects of that.
Mhm.
So just really love your process. Tell me a little bit about how when you okay, I've got my talk. I know I'm valuable. Why not me? Starting to get some attention. How did you start growing the confidence with regards to your fees and charging?
Mm. Yeah, I think the more opportunities you take, even if it is for free, the more experience you get into what is actually worth my time. Because in the beginning, everything is worth your time because you're gonna have to show up and kind of gauge. So at this point, well, even early on, because of having young children, I really had to see, is it worth me finding a sitter or having the conversation with my husband that I'm going to be driving 40 minutes away or whatever? Like, there are things that are more inconvenient for me. And if it is free, then I may have to pass. And that is okay because every no, you're making room for another yes. And I really believe other opportunities will come about. And I think it's just a progression of that is you seeing, is this really my ideal audience? Because I think every moment that you get to practice is great. Um, there's a mentor of mine, one of my speaking mentors, that says stage time, stage time, stage time. That's how you get better. And when you think about anything in life, you got to put in the reps, right? When I think about my singing, I got to put in the reps in practicing. I practice in my car, I practice in the shower, I practice in front of the mirror. Same thing goes for speaking or anything else in life. The more you are in front of people, the better you're going to get because it's closer to a real keynote in front of thousands, right? So you got to start somewhere and you got to start small. But then you start understanding that certain things are just not worth it for you. There are, lots of the things that I tell my clients is when you join these networking groups for entrepreneurs, many of them have trainers every meeting. They have an opportunity, somebody comes up and they share for 20, 30 minutes. Raise your hand. What is the process? How do you select your speakers? You have to ask. Sometimes they will say, we're looking for speakers, but don't wait until somebody says we're looking for speakers. You need to volunteer and say, how do you select them? Can I be considered? you know and it starts there, and then you start seeing, well, is it really worth it for me to, whether it be, logistics, how far it is, how long it is, right? If it's a virtual thing, I will say yes more to a virtual thing than in person because it's a lot more practical for me than having to drive all around town. So that's how I started deciding, and the same thing goes for fees, depending on how long it is, how long it takes for me to get there. Is it worth my time now that I charge more when I meet with clients one-on-one, right? So the confidence really came from experience, and there was really no other way to get confidence.
Mhm.
Is you got to throw yourself in the arena, and then you start learning.
Okay. Oh gosh, there's so much I've been writing. This is really good, Marta. All right. So a couple of things that you said that I want to touch on before we start wrapping up. This goes both ways. I heard you say it one way, but just knowing you, I know that you have the instinct of working it both ways. So every no makes room for a yes. I love that you said that because for every no that you get, and silence can be a no, right?
So
Sometimes we put out 20 pitches and crickets, right? We get nothing back. Well, in my ecosystem with my agency, our average is 400 pitches per speaker because that's what it takes. If you
mm,
want 3 valuable nuggets back, it's kind of what it takes. And it might seem super overwhelming, and it is.
mhm.
That's why, if you're serious, having an assistant and a
Yeah.
process um, that is a proven process is vital. And then you get to the point where you're really pushing forward. All of a sudden, this cascade starts coming this way, and then you can just field
Yeah.
opportunity. But I would never stop that forward momentum because you're always looking 3 to 6 months in the future, right? So you never want that to slow down. But for every no, you make room for a yes. So why not go after more no's, right?
Mhm.
Why not go after more crickets so that you get those yeses? So there's that. And then on the other side, every no that you say, so there are going to be times where it's not going to be worth your while to travel and go and speak in front of this particular audience because they're not your right fit
Yeah.
people. Right? It might be great. I think that especially in the beginning, get your voice out there. Like you just
Yeah.
go do it because you're
Mhm.
collecting data. There's so much value in that.
Mhm.
But once you get to a certain level, it is really important to pick the right audiences. And you can only do that if you know who your right audience is.
Mhm.
Um, if you're saying yes to everything, I just spoke with a speaker very recently, and she said, I'm speaking like 20 times a month. I am running myself ragged and I'm getting nowhere. She has a back end
Mhm.
offer, right? I started looking at where I'm just like, none of these are not your people. Speak at 10 places a month, right? And in front of the right audiences, your career is going to skyrocket. So I think that that's really important. Do the homework, like take the time to understand who you are, what your archetype is, what your value proposition is, what makes you different from other visibility strategists and experts. What do you bring to the table? Understand that first and your non-negotiables, then understand who you can make that big promise to and actually deliver. Who's your perfect fit people, who are your audience, and then that basically designates what audiences you're going to speak in front of, what kinds of organizations and opportunities you're going to throw your name into the hat for.
Mhm.
And your energy is very well spent. If you're saying yes to everything, you're kind of saying yes to nothing because
Mhm.
you're not really hitting the right chord. You would know this as a musician better than, as a vocalist, better than I would. Yeah, if you try to say all the notes,
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually get no notes, right?
Yes, there's a quote, I forgot who it is by, that says, "If everything is a priority, nothing is a priority."
Yeah, absolutely. So, how important is
Mm.
speaking to kind of next level business success? I know you mainly work with executive level women, like high performing women. How, but for men or women, can we just hide, or can our voices really
Mhm.
open some door? Like, what's the value there in making ourselves uncomfortable?
That is yeah, essentially. There is such a in terms of authority and credibility, when you position yourself as the expert and not just hiding behind, whatever it may be, the screen or even maybe a book. There are many people that publish books and they don't want to speak,
Sits
and
on a
I don't
shelf.
get it. It's on the shelf. When you, because that's the thing, really, is having the guts. Somebody, people will criticize you, and I can say this as a speaker as well. Especially as I was just getting started, people would come afterwards and be like, "Oh, I can help you with some techniques to project your voice more." Now that I'm super confident and doing all kinds of gigs, I just thought of it the other day. No one's coming up to me and giving me tips. I wonder if it has anything to do with my confidence. But I digress. So it's remember that when you're in front of people, you're already separated, like physically, clearly. You are already an authority in front of them. And so they see you that way as well. They're like, wow, they're up there. I wouldn't have most people sitting at an audience wouldn't have the guts to do what you're doing. So that on its own already sets you apart. And then when you open your mouth and you start, you know, putting together the different pieces of wisdom that you have, plus your life story, that is just human connection. People connect with other humans. And when they see that authority and the courage of staying, in front of people, of choosing to do that, even when sometimes speakers will get in front of people and they will say, "Oh, I'm so nervous." I don't recommend saying that, but people will commiserate with you because they're like, I'm very glad that I'm sitting here. So everybody understands that there is an extra added pressure in being in front of people, so they respect that. So yes, it makes a huge difference if you decide to speak. And this could be starting with a Facebook Live, right? Starting with an interview like this where you have somebody kind of cueing you. That helps as well. So start doing podcast interviews if that's where you're at. But then start hosting your own classes, your own events, start applying to other places, because then it's the level of scary increases, but then the level of authority and credibility increases as well, because then it is more terrifying, which means people respect you more.
Quality insights. Yeah,
Mhm.
quality. That was really we skip over the foundation a lot of times. We're just wanting to
Mm.
just already be there because
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But those building blocks are there because they work, right? They're time proven steps that
Yeah.
need to be taken if you're going to have a serious career and a serious speaker life.
Yep.
Right. Okay. I know by this point in our show, there are plenty of speak pactors, impactors who want to know, how do I get a hold of Marta Spurk? Where do you like to be connected with?
Well, I like to say I practice what I preach. I am very visible and social. So if you Google me, Marta Spurk, you will find different ways to connect with me. I hang out the most on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also present on LinkedIn. You can find my website, my podcast as well, The Empowered Woman. You can find my books on Amazon, and I also have my original music on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere. So you can pretty much find me on all platforms in different formats.
I'm going to look up your music. And for a woman who grew up in Brazil, if you hadn't told me that, I might not have detected it. Your American diction is almost too good because I like that Brazilian. My
Thank you.
executive assistant, we've been together for years, she is Brazilian, and I just love that little flair. But
Mhm.
you've definitely Americanized your.
I did. That was intentional.
I bet. I bet. But it is, I hear over and over. Like I'll go to. I'm from California,
Okay.
and I'm in Texas, and talk about moving to another country.
Yes.
I totally get you. Like I was like, what? I can't even buy ketchup. Like it's just everything was so foreign to me. It was so bizarre. Anyway, when I go back, I don't feel like I sound East Texan at all.
Mhm.
But I go back to visit family in California, and they hear it. I'm like,
That's
I
funny.
don't hear it.
Love it.
All right, Marta. So our closing question is you've just got so many golden insights, but what if you were to go back in time and tell yourself something you know now that could have maybe saved you some pain
Mm,
or saved you kind of circling the mountain one more time?
yeah.
What is something tactical you wish you would have put into or known, right? Known or put into to action early on in your journey?
I would say, and it really sums up so many things that we talked about here, is really embracing being a beginner. And this is forever in life. Um, the more I get involved with speakers and speaker trainers, that's what they say. The work never stops. You're always tweaking. You're always getting better. You're always learning from somebody. You're always adding something, taking something away. There's a speaker that I heard in last month's meeting of NSA that says, when is the right time to start working on your speaker reel again? As soon as you're done. Because
Exactly.
you're gonna speak somewhere else, you're gonna have to add that to
Yeah.
that reel, right? So when do you start working on your website? And obviously, there's layers to this. You're not gonna be just focusing on your website because you gotta get out and you gotta meet people and you gotta make sales. The website is not the end all. But just the general concept of the work is never done. And at times we resent that because it's like, haven't I reached the peak and I'm amazing now? No, you have not, because there's something else that gets to be done. And I feel like it's very important to challenge yourself in other areas. I'm one of those people that I like, not always, but I have learned to enjoy not knowing things and jumping into them. Like when I first moved to Colorado, started learning to ski, very foreign to me. I don't want to fall, I don't want to get hurt. But it's in those moments, especially when you're talking about physical strength, oh, the mind. That's when you realize we're talking about, being a mom, being married, having a business, but put yourself in those strenuous physical positions. Training for a marathon. I recently started taking jujitsu classes with my kids. And you're like, I know nothing. I feel so stupid. That's where you need to be. That's exactly where you need to be, because you have to get over it and you have to embrace it, because everyone feels silly at some point when they're starting something new. They may, advance a little faster because of prior experience, just innate knowledge, or just their body is more prone to certain things. But it doesn't mean that they don't have to go through the same foundational steps that we were just talking about. So that's what I would say. Be okay with being a beginner and just understand that it's a beautiful thing that you get to learn forever as long as you're alive.
Golden. Golden. Yeah, no growth comes without discomfort.
Mhm.
If you're too comfortable, I love that you said that. If you're too comfortable, stop it. Right? Start
Love
something.
it.
Like I love that you're taking jujitsu, you're getting yourself out there. It makes your brain pliable. It
Yes.
keeps you relevant and fresh. And
Yes.
that we're singing the same song, even though I'm sure I don't sound nearly as good as you do. Um, on those speaker assets. We're like, oh, good. I got my speaker assets done.
Mm.
No, you didn't. You
Just kidding.
started them, right? But we, at minimum, refresh those every 6 months. You have to stay pliable and relevant and fresh. It's so important. Embrace being a beginner. I think that keeps you humble.
Yes.
Again, keeps you relevant And this is one of my quotes, new level, new view, new you. So you're just like, there's pinnacle, you're like trying to get to, you get there, like, yes, I've arrived. But then all of a sudden you see all this whole new world,
Yep.
and you've changed. You've changed getting there. Your audience has evolved with you. And so it's kind of like starting all over. And if you can keep that level of humility,
Mhm.
um, a servant is a leader, right? There's an
Yes.
ancient book of wisdom that teaches that.
Yep.
And it's true. If you ever become the I've arrived and I'm all that, and that's where you get those speaker divas that nobody wants to work with. But if you have that attitude of being the servant, being the student at any given level, I just had the opportunity to hear a very famous singer songwriter in the Christian space. We went and saw him, and he's on every radio station. He's on every station, right? He's very well advanced, and he was so humble and
Mhm.
beautiful that you just wanted to hug him, right? And he didn't need to be so
Mm.
humble because he's arrived.
Right.
But I
Mhm.
love that you brought that up. Go ahead and talk about it as I pop back in.
Yeah, that is so true. And, there's different levels of I have arrived. And I think that's where people get confused is, oh, but you said I needed to be confident and just show up and do the thing. Um, but yes, and also not think that you know everything. Right. And I think at times people are like, well, I don't know enough, so I can't go. So it's kind of like that, finding that fine balance between I'm going to go before I feel 100% prepared, but also knowing that I'm a work in progress. And guess what? Everybody is. There's a book that I so love. It's called Mindset. I forget the name of the author. It's Carol something. She's a psychologist, and she talks about the infamous concept. I didn't even know that this concept came from her book, and she actually came up with it: the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And
Mm.
it was, I had heard of it so many times, growth mindset, you're always improving. Fixed mindset is, this is who I am and it is what it is. But the beautiful thing that she touches on that was like the missing link for me in understanding this concept is that we are both. We have both all of the time. It's almost like the little angel and the little devil on the shoulder. It's constantly somebody telling you, go for it, you got it, you know it. And the other one that says, you know nothing, you're ridiculous. And different times of life, we have one over the other, and we have to kind of battle one of the or the other. Certain things we're good and we just go for it. And then we get to apply that to other areas in life, like trying something new that you know nothing about. So it's just understanding that's part of our human experience. Is it's that I also compare it to being on a paddleboard. It's constantly balancing. There won't be a moment where you're in a paddleboard that you're not balancing. You may be better skilled,
Unless you want to
but
splash in the water. Yeah.
exactly, it's constant. It doesn't stop unless you fall off. So yeah.
I love paddleboarding, by the way. Yeah. I just discovered it this year because my son lives in Tahoe, and we went the whole Truckee River. We went like 8 hours, and I just sat holding on. Like I was and I tried to stand up a few times and splash, splash. But it's such a good analogy for the beginning of our speaking career. And then I'm like, after kind of getting my feel in the water, sitting for quite a while, I'm like, I think I'm going to try standing up again. I'm like, this isn't so bad. I can even teeter a little bit and I can still hold my balance. And now I came back to Texas and I'm like, honey, we're getting some paddle boards. Now we go like after work almost as often as we can. Um,
Nice.
a really beautiful connection.
Mhm.
And that growth versus fixed
Mhm.
mindset is going to determine whether or not you create your own ceiling,
Yep.
right? Let's say you chart out that first pinnacle. Let's say your first pinnacle is I'm getting three $10,000 engagements per month. Like that's your first goal.
Mhm.
Okay, you see that, but then you've got to reverse engineer what has to happen for that to happen. And then you climb up that mountain from step one. And then you
Mhm.
go to step two. Then you go to step three. And you arrive. And then you're like, I really love this. I could still do three, but I could raise my rate. Or I love this so much I want to do five, whatever the next mountain is that you want to conquer. And then that sets the whole thing in motion all over again. And you really communicated that so beautifully. It never really ends. Otherwise, you know, yuck. What's it all worth? Let's
I
keep
know.
going. Let's keep
Go
going.
forward.
And when you're out there inspiring, you're out there changing lives, you know that I'm sure you've gotten this, Marta, where somebody comes and it's like, I finally get it. I've heard this concept, I've heard this message, but I never got it. You struck me. You struck
Yes.
that chord I
Yes.
needed.
I
You're the
do.
one. You hold your voice back. That person
Mhm.
doesn't get to have that breakthrough in their own lives. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for getting your voice out there. And in all the challenges that you went through, definitely take a take a listen to Marta's The Empowered Woman podcast. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, go listen. She's got a lot of great wisdom when it comes to really kind of pushing your limits, getting more visible, getting your voice heard. And then also your book. I think you said it's on Amazon, The Empowered Woman. And then you also have The Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success. So keep doing it, Marta.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right. And for our beautiful Speak Pact audience, one way that you can thank Marta and me for coming to you today and sharing our wisdom is to just post this forward. There's other, if you got value out of this, there's other people out there who you know in your circles who can also get value out of this. So give Marta some flowers by liking, sharing, posting it forward, spreading the word, and most importantly, getting your voice out there. And however you want to do that, let's be on this pact to impact to get together. Let's make it happen. Ciao, ciao for now.